Okay, let's get going right on movie number 3, which is going to be the face detail. In doing so, I wanted to turn on all of the layers which make up Carrie's face, or Princess Leia, and let's go in and let me back off of this just for a moment, just so you can see how things actually look, okay? Now, I'm going to show you her right eye area and her left eye area, and I want you to anticipate where I cut off an area. Now let me kind of explain that, and then I'll show it to you on Han. Okay, so let me zoom into her eye area, and remember, this is about detail. Okay, so I'm going to turn off her right eye, and we're going to go right into this left eye area, which is her left eye. So let's open up and unlock, make sure I have the face locked up and everything else locked up. Yes, I do. And let's open this up. And now I want you to see how I have safe, S-A-F-E, copies of everything inside of here, but that the pupil number 3, the inner part of her eye, number 2, and number 1, which is down here, which is the outer 4. So let me turn that off, and that off. Now, actually, let me Command Z back 3 times. Because what I want to do is turn the face off. I want you to anticipate that this is actually what I refer to as the extra safe, again, S-A-F-E area, where if I want to get a painterly feel on some of the interior lines of this shape, which is the eye, look at when I turn this off. Look at how you can tell that this, where I'm pointing, this is where all the detail is in the eye. So if I were to make an edge of a mesh right there, or right there, or right there underneath that, you would see that line and it wouldn't look very good. So look at how I've brought it out a little farther into an area that I can control with an eyedropper and an opacity. So this is what I want to show you. Let me turn this off. Let me turn on the face and show you now what I've done. So I'm going to click to the mesh for the outer part of the eye. Actually, before I do that, let me turn off the pupil, because that's a separate shape, and let me turn off the inner eye, because that's a separate shape. Now, one more time, let me turn off the face. Here is the mesh for the face, and let me just click the circle for it so it all goes into dark points. Let me zoom in. Look at how all of these points out on the edge here are the points where I could actually click with an eyedropper, click from this point to here with an eyedropper on the face itself, and I can put it on a 0% opacity. Do you see where, when I turn off the face, do you see where most of these points up in here get light on the edge? It's not because they're white, it's because they have 0% opacity. So what I do is I use an eyedropper to color from this point to the face that's already there, and then I put this point on a 0% opacity. Look over here in the options palette. Let me move the gradient palette, or close it actually. Look at how it says 0% on that point right there. Well, let me turn the face on. Now, if I were to take this point right here, and let me just make it obvious. I'm going to take the eyedropper and color it right there. Okay, look at how you can see the edge of this. So you know that this is one mesh. Let me back off. That this is one mesh, and this is where the mesh ends. But notice how you can't tell where the mesh ends out here. You could have if it was too close to this face detail area. So in every case, when I show you something about putting smaller shapes on top of bigger meshes, always make it bigger than you think, anticipating that the outer part of the mesh is going to have 0% on the opacity after, listen carefully, after I take this point and I hit the eyedropper to this point. Now look, if I click away, you can still barely see that, but you still can see it. So what I'm going to do is click this point and click over here. Then I'm going to click this point and click next to it in the mesh that's behind it, which is the big face mesh. Now I'm going to shift click both of these points. I'm going to go over to the opacity and make it 0 and hit the return key. Now when I click away, you won't tell anything's there, because this one blends into this one using 0% on the edge. And that is how you create the painterly look. So look at where the edge of that mesh is. It's in a very safe area. It's in a blending out area where I can take the eyedropper and go from here to here. Then from here, let me zoom in. I can go from the eyedropper and go from here to here. Then from here to here. Then from here to here. And each one of these points could get 0% on the opacity if needed, which most of them need to do that. Okay? So again, if I take that point and I color it a darker value, then you're obviously going to see it right there. But watch when I take that point and I color it this value. Now you still can see that right there. I can see that change right there. But if I marquee all of these points right here, knowing there's part of the face, knowing the face mesh is underneath, and I go to 0% opacity, boom, you now cannot see where that one shape ended and the other began. So do you understand that simple concept? Now, I'm going to turn off the face itself so you can keep an eye on where it ends. Now, I didn't have to do that to here because I was lucky enough to match it up, but it would have been just fine for me to marquee every single one of these points right there and put them on 0% opacity. That would have worked nicely. And you can do that after, listen to me, after you eyedrop the shapes. So make sure only the edge points are selected. Look at how I'm grabbing all the edge points, just like this. I'll grab these two. I'll grab this one. Notice I'm marqueing from the outside. I'm grabbing all of these out here. Okay, I have to click that one by itself. Now, whoops, I had it, but I let go. Now I can go to 0% opacity, boom, boom, and now they go to 0%. Let's color all of these to 0% opacity. I have to make sure I don't go high enough to include anything on that second row. Now let me hold the shift key and grab these two. Let me hold the shift key and grab these. Now all of those, as long as there's nothing on that second row, can go to 0% on the opacity. When I click the face back in, boom, you can't see that at all. So now I want to get to the second part of this talk, which is how you actually do this. Now I'm going to click to the first one. So remember I said that each mesh needs to have simple lines. There are a lot less lines on that mesh. Where is the center line? Look, it's right there. Where's the center line? Let me zoom in just a little bit. Okay, let me move this over just slightly so I can get it closer. Okay, center line right here, and one of these lines became the left geometry. One of these two lines became the right geometry. This line probably right here became the top geometry, and one of these lines, probably this one or this one, became the geometry for the bottom. Now look how absolutely simple that is. Look at how that mesh allows me to do the construction of that eye, not of the pupil and the white of the eye, because I see this as three separate shapes, four if you include the eyebrows, and then a bunch of smaller shapes if you include the hairs for the eyebrows and the hairs for the eyelashes. I'll turn on all those layers in a minute. But look at how the complexity of this mesh, let me turn it off, went from that complexity. Let me turn on the next one. So now there's this one, there's this one. Now look at how it went from this here's where it started. Here's now about 8 more lines put in. Notice how now I'm getting more detail going in, and here's the clicky copy. As you can see, the clicky copy. Look at how I'm now detailing. Let me zoom in. Look at how I'm detailing where all that beautiful color is going to go. Now again, I see this interior white as a separate mesh. I'll turn it on in a minute. But let me turn off the clicky copy. Okay, here's the third safe one. Now with this one, I'm actually getting some of that inner lid color involved with it. But now look at, again, the complexity went from 1 to 2 to 3. Now let me turn off these again and go, here's the picture and here's the mesh. here's the actual picture, and here's the mesh for that one. Now here's the actual mesh, and here's the geometry for that one. Now here's the final one. Let me turn all these off. Here's the final one. Now here's the geometry for that. But again, look where it started. I'm just going to turn on the first one and show you the geometry. That's very simple. And if this geometry defines those shapes, then it'll be easier if this geometry defines the initial shapes of that part of the eye, then the fourth one was allowed to get that complex because I started with good geometry. And let me go back to the first one and show you there's the original corner of the rectangle here. Now look where I'm clicking here, look where I'm clicking right here, and look where I'm clicking right here. There is the initial geometry for that rectangle that you're going to contort into that shape. Now, the same thing occurs when you go to put on the next part. So this is where that now gets a little bit cleaner. Now, you see how this edge is showing up a whole bunch? Guess what I did to the opacity of that? So let me turn on the real one and go to the real one. Now, do you see how I was able to, I'm sorry. I didn't turn on the fourth one. I'm going to do that all over again. Okay, I'm sorry. This is the fourth one which I'm locking up. This is the fourth outer shape. Now let me turn on the final one here. Now, here is the shape of that. So let me zoom in. See how I was able to color this one right there and color it that color? You can't see now where the edge of that is. But where is the edge of this inner shape? There's the inner shape and there's the edge in a very safe area. Now that point right there, look at that point. I'm going to zoom in. That point went to what on the opacity? See how it's 0? Because I was having trouble blending this shape into this, but it didn't matter because I took this, I took the eyedropper and I eyedropped, and then I put the point on 0% opacity. Now let me lock up that and let's show the pupil. Here's the final pupil. So now look at how the final pupil has a soft edge. I can guarantee you that the soft edge of this is probably 0%. So now look at how I'm clicking on that outer part. Look at how all of these on the outer part of the pupil went to 0% on the opacity. Now here's something I need you to listen to. I anticipated when I made this pupil that I was going to need to make it slightly bigger than the reference. I'll say it again. I anticipated going to 0% on the opacity. I did not want a hard pupil blending into the white of the eye. So what did I do? I looked at the shape. There it is right there. But look at how big I made the pupil. Do you see how I made it bigger than I had to? And it was very simple to do. So that's the secret of getting a painterly feel. Now let me turn off the clicky copy and you can see just how beautiful that actually looks. Now when I zoom out, look at how incredible that looks. When you put the face back behind it, it even now has a better feel. Now the same thing occurs with this part of the eye over here. Look at how I gave the face a good background value for the right of the eye. Let me close the left eye. So didn't mean the right of the eye, I meant the eye. Oh, that's the texture. Sorry, I turned on the wrong thing. Let me unlock the right eye and turn it on. So now how many shapes do you think there are? Well, it's the same thing. And when I did Han, it was the same thing. So I have a pupil, which I can turn off. I gave the white area of the eye the dark values behind there. But again, look at the edge. What opacity do you think these are at right here that I'm clicking on? I'll click on one and it goes to 0% opacity. Now let me turn off the face so you can see where I actually cut this one. Look at how much 0% opacity I put in. I even forgot to do this one and forgot to do this one. And it didn't matter. I'll tell you why it didn't matter, because the eyedropper was able to take care of that. So would it matter if I actually put those on 0% opacity? It probably would make that better. So that's at 100% opacity. Let's actually turn off the face, find the 100s right here, right there. Those three go up to here and put it on 0% opacity, hit the return key. Whoops, I need to put that on 0. And there you go. Now that blends out beautifully. I forgot to do these. So that one should go on 0, that one should go on 0, and most of these up here should go on 0. But I really didn't have to have that go on 0 because that was in a dark area and dark just melted into dark. So look at how beautiful that is. Now that should have gone on 0% opacity right there. I made a big boo-boo. But it wasn't a big boo-boo because I had already eyedropped it to the proper color. I found the last one, which is right there. I'm going to put it on 0% opacity, and then I'm going to turn on the skin. So let's click to this. Let's click to the skin behind it. Let's click away from it. And now let me turn off the white of the eye. So this is the initial geometry for that. But again, look at how many I have. I have 4 of them. So let me turn this off and turn on the simple one and click to the simple one. Look at after I make the center lines, the left line, the right line, the top line, and the bottom line, I give it a reasonable color, and then I duplicate it. I duplicate it into this one. Now this one has about 8 more lines in it. I'll turn it off, and I'll go to number 3. Now I'm able to get into the geometry even more, because my initial geometry was pretty darn close. Now look at how close I'm being to that geometry, but it wasn't hard. So when I'm telling you to make things bigger than you need, go ahead, find a safe, soft, even blended area of your detail, like not by the nostril, but away from the nostril, or not by the mouth, but away from the mouth. And I'll show you what I mean on Carrie in a second, okay, with the mouth area. But when I turn off the clicky copy, look at how incredible that is. I'll turn on the second inner eye, and I only made 1 pupil because it was awfully easy. Now let me lock up this shape and this shape, and then I'll again get close. I'll again click on this. Now did you actually think when I clicked to that that pupil was that big? You might have cut it off right there, but I didn't. I went way out here. The reference is only that big. So I actually went into the safe area of the reference. So that is how to make a beautifully blended piece. Now let's go to the mouth area. Let me turn off the eyes. Boom, and whoops, that's unlocking, Brian. So the eyes are off, and now let's zoom into the mouth. The mouth is split between the lower and the upper. So I'm going to click on the mouth, and I'm going to click on, and I'm going to turn off. Look at how many I have. I have always a safe version. So let's start with I'm going to turn off the upper lip. Let's go to the lower lip. I'll show you the clicky copy for the lower lip. Okay, now for some reason the reference is moving a bit, but I'm okay with that. I'm not going to worry about it. It wasn't moving when I first did it, but that's okay. I must have unlocked it and moved it slightly, so which isn't a good thing, but that's all right. But let me turn off the mouth, and let me turn on the first mouth that I did. Now the first mouth is actually that shape right there. Now again, yes, there's more than 8 lines, but I have a center line, I have a bottom line, a top line, I have a left line and a right line. So I only have a few more, but look at how that followed the geometry of the curves of her lips. Now whenever I see a color change going vertically on here, for every color change you need a line. Now let me explain. This, I'll call this medium red. Light red means 2, dark red means, or medium red, so it goes medium, light, medium, light, medium, light, medium, light, medium, light, medium, light, medium. Watch this, medium, dark, medium, dark, medium. So right in this space right here that I'm circling, I have 5 lines. Let's see how close I got on 5 lines. So let me turn this off, click on the upper mouth, and now let's see if there's 5 lines there. So every time you see a line go in, it means there's a color change. Now let's see how I did. So yes, this looks complex, but not when you start with that. The second one went to this. The third one went to this. Okay, I probably really only needed 2, but you know, 3 is better than 2. And 2 is always better than 1. So let me turn off the bottom ones, let me turn off the clicky copy, and we can see just how good that is. So there is that lip. Now guess what? Guess what these points go to on the outer edge. A lip should never end quickly or abruptly. Just go look in the mirror. Your lip should end going on 0% opacity or a lowered opacity. So these right here are bigger than necessary. The lip actually ended before these, and I could put these on 0% opacity or just eyedrop out here, and if it blends beautifully, if it doesn't, I better change it. Which means I bet you some of these went to 0% on the opacity, although I'm not finding that. Let me turn off the face so I can see the zeros. You know what? I didn't need to go to 0% opacity on the edge of her because, let me click that, because, let me click up to the clicky copy. I did go bigger than necessary. Now let me click that away. Do you see where, if you squint, do you see where the lip actually ends right there where I'm pointing? But I didn't take it to there, I took it farther than that. So every single case, that's what you need to do. So on the top lip, you can tell you don't want to end a top lip right there. It wants to end up there, even higher into the skin. So let's see how Brian did. So now let me take that, let me turn on the face so I can see those tones. Let's turn on the top lip. Now in the top lip, I definitely have been playing with opacities. So let me see the initial lip. So here is the initial lip and here is the initial geometry. You know what? I better make that like a yellow or a gold or an orange. Okay, that one you can see better. Okay, so here's the initial geometry for it. You can see the center line, top line, bottom line, right line, left line, right? That's the same thing all the time. Now let's turn on the upper one and let's turn on the complexity of it. So you can see how I went directly from this one to this one. Because really it didn't take that long, and I knew that if I had my geometry correct, I could just keep on adding and coloring. Adding and coloring, adding and coloring, adding and coloring. So let me turn off the bottom one. Let's get close and let's see what I put these outer ones on. So that one right up there, I was able to take these right up here. Let me click on this one. You know what? I'm maintaining. I didn't have to go to 0% on the opacity, but I made sure that I was up higher than I needed. Now I'm going to click this so it goes to orange, or let me click it to yellow so we can see this a little bit better. Okay, that's good. Now look at the clicky copy. Look at where you would think if I back off, look where that lip really ends. It ends here. But there's always that variation of tone. Again, go look in the mirror. So make it bigger than necessary, and I always call it the 2-line feed. Make it a line farther than you think in the initial geometry. So when you're to this stage right here, when you're to this stage, you better make it up higher than you need, because if you wait till this stage to move points, you're going to be moving 15,000 points up when all you really need to do is to move 6 or 7 points up. Okay? Now let's go see what Han looks like, and then I'll show you how to do the face texture. So let me turn off the clicky copy. Whoops, I have to go up higher. Turn off the clicky copy. Let me turn on the mouth, the final one for the mouth, and close the mouth. And now I'll turn on all the layers that make up her. So here is her with her right eye and left eye. Let's move out. Now watch how I'll start on the bottom. Here's the top hair on the back of her. Here's the neck area. Here is her hair under the face on her right hand side. Here's the vest. Okay, now the vest I did in several meshes, and I'll turn on this clicky copy so you can see the vest. Look at the vest. Now let me just open up the vest, and I'm going to unlock it and see that I only made one vest because it was relatively easy, but I wanted you to see how the vest was bigger than I needed. See how there's so many neat kind of folds in this? Here's the clipping mask for the vest. Can you see it? See how that follows the actual outer part of the vest? I made the mesh bigger. So I was able to, let me turn this off, so I was able to actually make it and use the drawing of the vest in a clipping mask. I'll lock it up. Actually, I'll turn it off. So you can see how big I made the mesh, but then I clipped it to there. Now this, obviously, I don't want to get involved. Boy, could I get involved in stuff. I'm just going to turn on the rest of the face, or the rest of Leia. Okay, so here is her left hand. Here is her right hand. Now, in the hands themselves, I may... Oh, let me just unlock them. Let me see how many shapes it took to make up the hand. Now, I think for this one, since there were not really super separate fingers that stuck out of the one, okay, let me turn this on, that stuck out of her palm. Oh, I have several, but I actually only have, I did it in one shape. So here is the shape that I actually did it in. Let me turn it on and click on it. So here's the shape that I started with. Obviously the right hand goes over this, so I'm going to turn off the right hand. So there is the shape for the left hand before the clipping mask. So now I masked it, so here's the second shape. Let me turn off the upper shape. So here's how the shape started. There's the mesh. Here's how the second shape went on. There's the mesh. Here's the clicky copy. So now you can see how I'm starting to generate. You know what? I need to turn on this part of it. So there is the hand, because I have a separate file which included her hand. Now, do you see how I'm starting the geometry for that hand? I think I'll leave this on and I'll just show you the rest of it. So now here is the next geometry. You can see how I'm actually aligning everything, but it's because the initial geometry went on so well with this hand right here. Look at how I've identified all the major geometry so that by the time I got to the third one, there's the third one. Here's the fourth one. Here's the fifth one. Here's the sixth one. And here's the seventh one. Now what I did was I have a hand outline which I kept, but let me turn off the clicky copy, which is this clicky copy, and now let's go see. See, I didn't care about that part of the hand, did not care, because another thing was going to go over it, which was the right hand. So now let me turn all of this off. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now when I turn on the other hand, see how that one makes up the drawing for it. Okay, and that looks really good. Now the same thing is going to occur with that hand, where I think I did that in one shape. But you know, every shape is different. I have done hands where separate fingers were separate meshes. Did you hear what I said? Separate fingers were separate meshes. Now let me describe to you what I mean. That would mean that I would do a palm which would come higher than necessary. Do you see what I'm drawing? The palm or the meat of the hand would come higher than necessary. Then I would do almost a perfect cylinder for the one finger. Then the points on the finger would go to 0% opacity, where I wanted the end of the finger to blend into the hand. And that would be the same for all 4 fingers. You would not end a finger right here. Do you see what I'm talking about? You wouldn't end it. You would take it farther than necessary right here and then go to 0% on the opacity. If you were to choose to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate shapes on a large, meaty part of the hand. So it's all an art. It's just once you get used to how to do it, it's not going to be tough. Let me lock up the right hand. Let me turn on the ear, which is right there on her. Let me turn on the hair in the front. Let's zoom in a little bit. Again, the hair in the front was broken down into several shapes. I'm going to do a whole movie on just the hair part, but because I don't want you to think that was one mesh. It was a series of meshes that I actually did directional lines on to give you an indication of that, although I'm only going to click on one thing. Let me unlock the hair in the front. Let me unlock all of those shapes and I'll click on them. There's one mesh right there. You can see what I've done. I created a mesh from here to here. Then I created a mesh from here to here. Then I created a mesh from here to here. Then I created a mesh from there to there. Now inside that mesh, I actually had this be the actual mesh. So here was one, this was the next one, this was the next one over. Again, this was the one right next to it. So you can see how I broke those down. And I try to break down the different shapes into the simplest shape I can. I don't try to be a hero. Maybe doing the hand in one mesh was a little complex, but it wasn't that tough because all the color changes were going in the right direction. Now I have the braids. Let's zoom into her eyelashes actually, because I have no eyelashes on. So here are her eyelashes and her eyebrow hairs. And I did those by taking a pen tool and I drew them out, and then I colored them and I put them on different opacities to blend them in. Okay, so if I were to unclick the eyebrow lock button and click it, you can see those are just strokes that I colored. They weren't fills, they were just strokes that I colored. Then if I take this and lock it and I unlock the eyelashes, those were just strokes that I colored. If you were, I should show you, gosh, there's so much to show you. I should wait till the hair to show you. I really should. But if I turn off Leia and I add one more layer to this, and I take the pen tool and I just simply make a simple stroke. I want you to see how I can take that stroke right there, which is a simple stroke. I'm going to click a center point right there. I'm going to click a point right on the stroke here, and I'm going to click a point right on the stroke here, and I'm going to double click this and take it away from olive gray so you can see what I'm talking about. So let me go into red. Now let me zoom in. Do you see how one of these ends should taper? So if I go to this end right here, let me grab this color right here and hit the eyedropper and eyedrop out that point right there. I'm sorry, I need to go to my palette right there and I need to click on a solid fill, which is right there. Now, there's a tool called the Shape Width tool, and it's brand new to Illustrator. But you can go into the Shape Width tool, which I believe is right there. It's called the Width tool. You can click here, right on this point here, and you can actually thin it down like this. Now what I should have done was memorize that thickness over here. So I'm going to Z back. I'm going to grab this anywhere I want to, and I'm not making that marker happen, the tool does. I can actually memorize that position here so it stays that thick. Then I can grab it and make it go thinner right there, and I can taper that stroke. So I can do that on all the hairs. So I just wanted you to see that, and I'm going to throw away that layer, and then I can actually just keep on going. So let's go in now. Hopefully this won't be a real long movie, and let me hit Command 0 to go to full screen. And now let's turn off Leia, let's turn back on Han, and the next movie will be about bringing in the texture from Photoshop. But I'm not going to go farther than I need with Han, other than, let me move the swatches palette over, other than to show you the same kind of shapes that Leia had. So let me turn on the mouth upper, let me turn on the mouth lower. Now, you can tell that when I click on the mouth, let me zoom in, when I click on the lower mouth, I have it named beautifully, and I'm going to open it up, that I have only one mouth on this case. I made a center line, a left line, and a right line, and I make a bottom line and a top line. Now I guarantee you I had more lips in there, okay, but I must have gotten rid of them because I was happy with this lip, all right? But again, I made it bigger than necessary. Now let me lock up the lower mouth, let me click on the upper mouth, and you can see here how I have many is 4, and I have this upper one here. Now you can tell again that I actually made it higher than necessary, and that those opacities didn't even need to go to 0. I just eyedropped from here to here. But doing it in a, whoops, I have to lock up the face. Whoa, okay, that was silly. Let me close the face and lock it up. Now if I click on this, you can see that I made it bigger than where the lip actually ended, so that I could take that and click that point, hit the eyedropper, and eyedrop out here. So if I show you the actual lip where it ends by turning off the face, you'll see there's where the lip ends. Look where that point is already selected. Let me turn the face back on, and look at where it comes in like this. Now let me go up to the eye, and let me show you a portion of that eye. Just the same way Leia was done. Now, let's work on that eye. I'll probably click the wrong one, but I have two choices. It's his left eye, so I already knew. All right. And I'll turn on, in a minute, I'll turn on his eyebrow. Hopefully I'll remember to do that. But let me make sure everything else is locked up, and let me unlock his left eye and open it up. Now, the same thing that Leia had, Han has. So I'm going to turn off his pupil. I'm going to turn off the white of his eye, and I'm going to click on the outer part of his eye. Look at how big I made it, and I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see it. Okay, right there. Now let me move this over. Okay, but that wasn't the first one. Let me unlock them and click them. Here was the first one. Again, isn't that simple geometry? Center, center, left, right, top, bottom, go for it. Make it bigger than you think. So let me turn off this, and this is what it looked like in the initial stage. I didn't even bother coloring it in the initial stage. I waited until I had the geometry in. I didn't care what colors were there because it was only a few lines. So I actually took this one, and this is where I actually started coloring it. So I took the eyedropper and I colored each one of these with the clicky copy on. Then I got to the number 3 one, and you can see on the number 3 one just how beautiful that is. And if I turn on the clicky copy, this is the Han clicky copy. So there's the Han copy. Hopefully it'll come back on. You can see here how everything is soft, how I have everything in pretty much the right area other than, you know, a millimeter off here or a millimeter off there. And now you can tell just how good I have that. And that totally looks like Han. Now let me turn on the white of the eye when that turns off. Here is the final white of the eye. And let me unlock it and click on it. So again, look what I did. I made it bigger than necessary. And, you know, I'm going to say this, but I know I keep on saying that. Don't end something where it logically says to end. Other people have, let me lock that up. Other people have looked at where this white ends and said, naturally, oh, that's where it should end. But that's not where it should end. Would you please look at how much bigger I made it? You remember the 2 lines I made larger than necessary? Look at how that gives that a whole painterly feel. How come? Because that's a soft edge. That's a soft blend from this tan. I'll zoom in. From this tan color right here into the white is a soft blend. How come I was able to do that? Because my mesh ended out here, not right here where I'm pointing. Big professional difference in how to approach the geometry for gradient meshes. So now let's turn this on. Again, where do you think the pupil ended? Is it right there where it looks like it ended? Let's click it, and it ended a little bit farther out. And there is a good pupil. So all of that makes, I have to hit Command 0 and then zoom in. It's going to take a second, just a minute. Okay, it's taking, I wouldn't be surprised if Illustrator quit on me right now because I have a lot of things going. So let me just zoom into that. I'm sorry it's taking so long, but no, it's going to go really big now. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's pretty good. Let me go back. The more layers you have on, the slower Illustrator gets. And when you do the texture part, oh my gosh, everything else better be off. So let me turn on his right eye here. I'll have him wink at you. See? Okay, good. And then let's go right into the eyebrows. Again, the same thing with Leia. The eyebrows are simply shapes. In this case, a little bit different than Leia because I actually will unlock. I did the whole eyebrow as that, a big shape, where the end parts have 0% opacities all the way through these. All the way through these, there are varied opacities. Like out here, some of these go to 0, some of them go to 15%, some of them go to whatever. But I thought, well, he can actually get his under eyebrow part. Let me see if I have, yes. I'm going to show you something right now, if I don't make this machine crash. I have a large shape that gives me the body of his eyebrows. but I need individual eyebrow hairs to give it the character. So I'm going to zoom in. Hopefully we can see this on the screen. Okay, I really didn't want to get it that big, but I guess that's okay. So here is the body of his eyebrow, right here. So you can see how I blended the shape. Here's how big I made it. And here's the clicky copy for it. Let it turn on for a second. Okay, now let me click away. See how I made it bigger than necessary. Good. I paused because I wanted you to hear that. Now, let's click back. Let's lock up his eyebrows. And let's go to the upper eyebrow hairs. And now look at how the upper eyebrow hairs give it the character. I didn't need a lot of character. I just needed a little character. And those two blended together make that really cool. The same way we're going to get into the hair and do the thin top hairs. But I'll turn the rest of this material on. It's taking a moment for this to actually screen draw. Okay? Okay, I'm a little nervous that this is going to actually crash. Which I don't care if it does. I'll just reopen the machine. All right, I'm waiting for this to move over. Come on, Han. Make sure I don't have my texture on. No. So here is the thin top hair. Look at how, oh boy. I need to pause for a second and then move them down. Oh boy. I shouldn't have turned on the thin top hair without actually top hair. Oh, that's what I was looking for. Okay, here's the hair of Han that gives me the look. Now, obviously, that looks a little odd because I need to go down here and turn on the back hair. The back hair on Han, which is over here. Let me turn on all the hair on Han. Let me close the eyebrows. Let me close the mouth and find his hair. So here is his hair on the top of his head. Now that makes up the rest of Han's hair. Here's the top hair, which again, just like Leia, I made different sections. I looked at his reference and I said, oh, this, look what I'm doing, this can become one rectangle. Then behind it can come another rectangle. Then this whole thing can become one rectangle. Then this whole section is one rectangle. Then that section right there is one rectangle. And I'll get into that when I actually show you the hair movie, which probably won't take long when I actually get there. But let me turn on the thin top hair now, and that's what gives it the character. There isn't many, maybe 50 or 60 top hairs. Then here's the forehead lines that come in, and let me back off on this a whole bunch. It'll take a second. Okay, a whole bunch more. And let me move this up. So here is his shirt. Here is the coat on both sides of him. And the only thing I don't have on now is the neck and chest area. So here's his neck and his chest area, including all the little hairs. So this is movie 3, I believe, yes. And now you can go on to movie 4, the texture.